everyone. Welcome to Life in Full Send, Athletes Reimagined, the podcast where we discuss the experience of redefining life after being an athlete. I'm your host, Liz Hall, an integration specialist and your teammate in navigating that big question, what comes after sports? Each week I sit down with former athletes who have faced that very question and share how they navigated the transition. I am currently wrapping up my master's degree in transpersonal psychology and starting my doctoral degree in the fall. The focus of my work is identity loss in athletes after they come out of sports. In one of my classes, I cited a book written by my guest today as he discussed his struggle with depression and addiction to opioids as an attempt to continue playing football. Let's dive in with Darryll Stinson, a story about faith, perseverance, redefining success, and staying full send long after the final game. Let's get into it. Had you been aware of any depression before college? Did you have any experiences that you can remember, or did you even know what it
Yeah,
was?
I actually had more than I like to talk about, man. I can't remember my earliest feelings of that, but I know it was probably in elementary school, when I was being teased for, how I talked and dressed and act. And I think part of me, yeah, I definitely had those thoughts back then. I just kind of shoved them down in a way.
You become functional. I think a lot of people speculated that Michael Phelps was depressed because he was retiring. It's like he's been battling depression his whole life. He just didn't speak on it. And just like you said, after 2020, Simone Biles talked about it, and she talked about it in her documentary of, I don't know how I'm going to feel when I'm done, but I know I'm going to feel something, right? She kind of
Hmm.
foreshadowed that this is going to be something that she has to process. So I appreciate your vulnerability, because what I don't want are people to think I'm going to be depressed when I stop playing. That is not
Hmm.
always the case. Again, the loss, the stages of grief are possibilities, and you speak on that in your book. Some people just accept it. Some people are so grateful to be done beating up their body, right? They're
Hmm.
like, whew, glad. So it just is so individual. What do you think you needed and when to make the transition out of sports easier?
I needed a practice to help me to think about transitioning without the psychology of failure built into it. So I needed somebody to go dream big, dream beyond. I would have loved to have that conversation. Then I was pretty aware of myself and my talents and my dreams then. And after that, I think then my athletics took over too much, and then I couldn't see beyond it too much. But if you would ask me fifth, sixth, seventh grade around like, hey, how far do you want to go as an athlete, and then what do you want to do beyond that? I would have had a ton of stuff to say. So then, the earlier the better before the programming gets deeper in. That's why I wrote the book. So the book was like, hey, what the help I wish I had. So the book is the transition roadmap: accept, believe, discover, pursue, persist. Like that is the 5-step framework of transition, or I like to call it like the 5 phases of transition. And they're not, you don't have to do one until you graduate to the other. They're really all kind of like stuff you're kind of going through simultaneously. They're just different uh, aspects of what you're dealing with, right? So in the acceptance, it's like, hey, I did not know that I had a trouble, not just accepting that my career was over, but accepting that this potential that I had, this shoulda, woulda, coulda, was never gonna be.
Mm.
And that was challenging. It was like I got like, okay, I'm not gonna do an athlete, but it was like for some reason, oh man, you were fast. Oh man, you were strong. Oh man, you was better than so and so. Was still like feeling this like, man, if I ever get healed, I might just, or man, see, I am. And it's like it wasn't allowing me to make peace and move on. It's like if you ever been in a dream that you felt like you couldn't wake up from, it's like that's sort of my perspective on how I was back then. It was like I'm in this fog of like trying to hang on, but I know I'm not doing what's right, and I know I'm not supposed to be doing all these drugs or like numbing my pain in this way. I don't even know if I would have said I know I should reach out to somebody. I don't think I even I think maybe I thought about it, but it was such a fleeting thought that I didn't wrestle with it often. I just kind of pushed it away because it was like, no, I can't talk to anybody about this. It's like,
Mm.
what are they going to think? And then I honestly was so scared to unravel because there was so much pent up in there. So I don't think I was aware at all. I think I was just kind of like deep, deep within wanting to wake up, wanting to ask for help, wanting to cry, but not even knowing how to access that part of myself because it was so cut off and shut off and compartmentalized for too long.
Because that's what sports does, right? Got to be
Mhm.
strong, got to be tough, got to grind. You almost have to put that away to get through a practice, a game,
Mhm.
right? So we're conditioned in that mindset, and it's hard to break. All a belief system is a thought repeated. Well, you have coaches telling you for 10, 15, 20 years how to think. You latch onto that. What was it that you missed about the game?
I think it's the camaraderie, man. I miss the team. I don't even know if I found it. Like entrepreneurs are go-getters, but it's like unless I personally build our internal team to be 105 people, which I don't, that's not my intentions at this stage of my life. There's nothing like having 105 people that are working their every ounce of energy off, like trying to be their best. Like the I don't know, like the energy of that is amazing. And so like I just miss that. I miss people grinding and getting it and like waking up, going after it with like everything you got. I think sometimes we think we're going hard as, entrepreneurs and, when you get around athletes who are scratching and clawing for every inch, you start to realize what real work ethic really is. And it's hard to access that in business when you're on Zoom and you're, having connection calls and it's like not this like physical mountain that you're climbing, but if you can just hold on to that edge internally, I think that it gives you a bit of a fuel to your fire as you build your vision. Was ultimately I couldn't keep up with the high level division 1 football. Like my body started to fail me. I started to develop a permanent hunch in my back. The opioid pills were not numbing the pain enough, so I was feeling high levels of pain that I couldn't numb out with that. I was doing epidural shots, nerve killings, lots of special procedures to continue to numb my pain in my back, and those would stop working. I was taking so many opioids, trying to just numb as much pain as possible, and it was thinning my blood. And
Mm.
then every time I made contact on the field, which was basically like almost every play, my nose would bleed. So I would play these games with these nose plugs in my nose. And so coaches just kind of like was picking up on these signs. And at the end of my junior season, they were like, yo, we can't let you come back next season. This is like way too dangerous for you, for us. And we're happy to have you come around. And that was it, and I was angry. I thought they quit on me. I thought there was a lot more that they could have did to try to rehabilitate me. I stormed out, and depression stormed in, and all those feelings of suppression were starting to emerge. Right when you have such high level of physical activity and you're always on opioids, you're just numb to life, and you're not really feeling what's going on. And so, I was taking less, I was playing less, and then I was playing not at all, and I was just sitting there with all these emotions that were there alone, but I was too busy, too suppressed to really notice them. Let me pause there because many of our listeners might find themselves in that. And for me, at that season of my life, it was opioid pills and the busyness of sports. But for some people, their drug of choice might be Netflix or social media or two careers or being a social butterfly. We tend to just put so much into trying to keep this hustle alive that we don't always feel what's going on inside of us, and are we healthy and are we happy on the inside of there. And so man, here I am, I'm not happy, I imploded, And that's when the depression set in. That's when I'm 275 pounds to 219 pounds in 4 weeks trying to starve myself because I didn't feel like my life mattered. My phone wasn't ringing anymore. I didn't know who I was outside of this sport. And I didn't have any skills to deal with all of these emotions that were now coming up that I wasn't playing sports or suppressing. So, I tell people whatever you don't express, you suppress or
Mm-hmm.
repress. And it's
Mm-hmm.
only a matter of time before you implode or explode. So I imploded, went to self-hatred and harm. And thank God I ended up in a psychiatric care facility because it was there my life changed forever. I found faith. I did my first journal entry, my first mindfulness exercise. I started to learn like, hey, there's a whole world on the inside of here that you haven't slowed down enough to pay attention to become more sensitive to navigate, to lead. And it was the beginning of a whole new world for me.
Such an honest and vulnerable conversation with an incredible soul. Thanks to Darryll Stinson for sharing his heart, time, and his journey through navigating life after the jersey. If this episode inspired you, share it with a fellow athlete or friend navigating their next chapter, because we are all writing our playbooks as we go. Please make sure to follow and subscribe to Life in Full Send, Athletes Reimagined on YouTube. And if you loved the episode, please drop a quick comment so we can reach more incredible athletes who may need to feel seen and heard. Until next time, please remember, the game ends, a chapter ends, but your story doesn't. Keep living your life in full send.